5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're good. Okay. Now, okay. So you will notice that TruthSurge is not here with us. I apologize for that, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. We had some technical difficulties on his side. So I'm going to just give. So you will notice that.
Sorry, my bad.
Hold.
Go ahead. Okay. I was watching the channel.
Okay. Okay. Maybe the audience can help us out because you know what? I don't want to go through the technical specs. I just did 45 minutes trying to get him. If he makes it in, I'm crossing my fingers that he comes and joins us later. I'm going to let him try to figure it out from his end how to get into the Google Hangout. If not, let's just make the best of this. All my notes. Are you a mythicist, TJ, by any chance?
Well, to me, it's more like Mark said. We were at the gathering last Wednesday. It's like he was like, well, it's like people arguing about the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like whether or not you know the rules of the game, it's still a made up thing, and there's no such thing as magic, right? So you know that.
Yeah, the consequence.
To me, it doesn't really matter. Even if he was a dude, right? Like, who cares? I don't believe the supernatural claims made about it.
So you think the consequences are just so minimal, it just really doesn't matter. So why even spend time thinking about it, right?
Well, I mean, there's several people on Earth right now that have made their livelihoods off of debating this topic, which I don't diminish the work that they're doing. I mean, I think it's people have questions about things, and it's good to try to come up with answers.
Yeah. But, hold on, I'm trying to get the live chat up so I can see that on the side. You guys fill in the dead air until I can get this going.
I mean, I'm sure you and Chris have way more to say about this topic than I do. I don't see the point in debating it, because whether or not I think he was an actual historical person, I don't believe the supernatural claims made by the Bible. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about. Like you said, in the same way, it's fun to talk about, who would win in a fight between the Millennium Falcon and the Enterprise kind of thing. But if you want to talk about it with an actual believer, once you've established doubt in the Jesus of history that also performed miracles and was the Son of God and died for your sins and all that, then that's sufficient for me. Once you've established that Jesus was at most just a dude, then you've already kind of dismantled Christianity from the very foundation, and anything more than that is just gravy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good now, I think. Okay, so for the 2 people that are watching right now, well, people will watch it after it goes to pre-recorded, but so yeah, we just spent 40 minutes trying to get the TruthSurge in. I apologize. He's still going to work on it from his end. We're crossing our fingers that he shows up. This is the second time this has happened. He just some catastrophic technical difficulties. Hey, things happen. We're going to make the best of it. Here's the 3, me being a historicist, I think Jesus did exist as a human being. And here's what I was going to throw out to him. Well, of course, Galatians 1:9, that's a really big one to me. It blatantly, let me just read it word for word. It says, this is Paul speaking. And first off, Paul, there is no one that says Paul didn't exist. I mean, we know the consensus is strong that Paul did exist, and he wrote at least 6 of those 13 epistles. So he says here, I saw none of the other apostles, only James, Jesus's brother. That, man, I mean, it can't be any more clear than that, right?
How long supposedly did Paul live after Jesus' lifetime?
He started writing 30 to 35-ish years after Jesus's death. He was alive when Jesus was alive, but he never met him face to face.
Well, he died.
So he did live during the lifetime of Jesus.
Supposedly, something like that. So
he grew up in Jerusalem. Yeah, he's like half a generation after Jesus, but their lives did overlap, but they never met face to face.
They never met, but he did meet James. He says he met James.
Yes. I mean, that right
who was
there.
the younger or older brother of Jesus?
I don't know, Chris. What he had to have been older, because the idea is that Joseph, Jesus's dad, there's an idea that he probably had a former wife, that maybe he's a widower or a divorcee. But when he was espoused to Mary, there's an idea that he brought children from another marriage into that.
Well, if James was a biological son of Mary, he would pretty much have to come after Jesus. Because
No. James, Mary didn't. I see what you're saying.
Because
how was he Jesus's brother if he didn't come from Mary, right?
Brother from
because
another mother, to use the
he couldn't have been just Joseph's child,
right?
Because that wouldn't have made him a sibling of Jesus. That made him
it would be his half brother,
a step sibling.
Oh step brother.
It would have been a step brother, right?
A step brother.
The only way he could have been an actual brother of Jesus if he came from Mary, or came from God, right?
He was the John C. Reilly to Jesus' Will Ferrell.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he could have been a stepbrother, but I've heard that theory that Joseph brought children from another marriage into it, and that would make,
he wasn't a real blood sibling of Jesus.
Yeah, just like Nathaniel snarkily says in the comments that, if James and Jesus, it says in the Bible that he had multiple brothers, and he had at least 5 brothers and at least 2 sisters. And if they are his true blood, then they all have to be younger. So that's correct. All right. So anyway, the criterion of embarrassment. Now this can work 2 ways, but I look at it like this. The Old Testament, anytime there's talk about a Messiah, a Messiah in Hebrew, right? It's always the deliverer, the one that's going to deliver us out of bondage, and in this case, Roman bondage or whatever. He's going to come in basically with a sword, and it's going to be through force. This is what they were expecting. So when Jesus, this Messiah, if he was true, but then he got nailed to a cross, what? And he didn't even put up a fight. So it was very embarrassing. And the apostles were taken back. They were disillusioned. They were shocked. They didn't see it coming. No one saw it coming. So if he was the Messiah, that's not the way it was supposed to end. But that lends credibility to the story. I'm not saying anything about any supernatural phenomenon or any miracle working, but him as a human being, that lends credibility to him actually existing. The fact that it didn't go the way they thought it was going to in prophecy.
Yeah, it's possible. It's interesting to think that, Paul's our earliest writer, and, he is kind of vague on a lot of points, but he does say very specifically, I think in Colossians it is, where he says, we preach Christ crucified, not we preach Christ sacrificed before the beginning of the world. If he's talking about crucifixion, you have to make a case that he's talking about a figurative crucifixion, which I'd be interested to see the case made for that, because it doesn't seem as straightforward a reading as when he says crucifixion, he actually literally means crucifixion.
Now read this. Listen to this. This is straight off of the Watchman Fellowship. It's a group of Christians that we go to a book club with here locally, and so part of their job is to talk about counterfeit religions, counterfeit Christianities. They do a entire a 5-week course on even atheism and just all types of things. But the one about the Jesus mythicist, and I'll just quote here. Now we all know Josephus, his book on the antiquities, right? So this is straight from that. In Josephus names Jesus alongside the following names. All right, Festus, we know existed. Ananus or Annas. He even says James, Jesus' brother again. Herod Agrippa. And now these are historical figures that there is no controversy. They did exist, and Jesus is lumped in with all these other ones. So I thought that was the third, and that was my final that I was going to give to TruthSurge as maybe not a smoking gun, but just really solid evidence that. And Josephus was a contemporary. He wrote you know, quite a bit after Jesus's death. But I mean, he's in that same time frame ballpark, you know, late first century, early second century. But he wrote, so here he is naming Jesus right alongside historical actual characters. I know that's not a smoking gun, but I don't know. It's at least some. It might be weak evidence, but it's evidence. What do you think?
It certainly points in that direction.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a joiner.
What?
Uh-oh.
What?
Oh, there he is.
No. No, do not tell me.
Oh, it is. It's him.
It's a miracle.
All right, give me a minute. I'll be right back.
Crazy motherfucker. You finally figured it out. All right. Oh, that's so great.
Figures things out.
Oh, I got to let you guys know.
Get up from that. Oh, Wolf, what are you doing?
You're going to get a lot of that, guys. So,
Sorry.
TruthSurge is he's nutty. So we're just going to have, we have the exact same type of sense of humor. Just I'll give you that warning right now.
Duly noted.
Okay. Wow. Now here's where if you will indulge me, a TruthSurge, I'm going to just spend a couple minutes here just gushing. So I'm going to tell a story. Okay. This is maybe 2007, 2008. It was my second tour of Iraq, I think, maybe first. We would, internet is shitty. Oh, we basically relying on DVDs just to pass the time when we're not on watch. Right. But, of course, there's a couple other atheists. It's not just atheist YouTubers, but we're passing around not bootleg, but downloaded videos from YouTube, and that's how I found you. And that's how I started. It wasn't even online. I was watching DVDs of the old pioneers in the atheist YouTube community. It was Thunderfoot. I know it was Dark Matter 2525, Bionic Dance, of course. And a guy named 43 Alley, who's kind of obscure. You might not have heard of him, but he's got really good content. And this guy, TruthSurge. And that's how I found you. I found you. I wasn't even online. We were trading DVDs back and forth in the sandbox. And this was over 10 years ago. So I've been an atheist my whole life, but you were basically my first introduction to atheist YouTubers. And you did a 37-part video series called Excavating the Empty Tomb, which oh man, I was so into it. Did you, TJ or Chris, have you ever seen any of those yet?
I went to look some of the videos to see, to see what maybe some of his positions were on certain things, but what I ran into is the musician side of me got caught up in watching a lot of his music videos and stuff.
You know what? Anyway, welcome TruthSurge, and this is TJ and Chris, and I'm glad you made it in. And so let's just start with that. Oh, do you have anything to say to open up?
Well, barely made it. I had to. I actually, the way I fixed this is I fired up Internet Explorer, and I said, well, if it's not going to work in Komodo Dragon browser or Firefox browser, let me just try an Internet Explorer. Well, I logged in, got the verification code, typed it in, pasted the URL, and it's apparently, I see you guys, y'all can hear me, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So it's
perfect.
working in Internet Explorer. So there is some issue in whatever version of Firefox I'm using, apparently.
Well, I'm so glad we figured it out then. That's awesome. Okay. You know what? That was a great segue, TJ. So let me just ask you real quick, TruthSurge. The last atheist video that you've done, I mean, wildly popular, but I haven't seen one any more recent than 4 years ago. You did something about Bonehead. I forget. It was kind of like in the game show format about you were talking about vestigial organs. It was like Bonehead move or good move or something.
Bonehead design.
Yeah, that's it.
Is this the way an intelligent designer, not even an omniscient designer, but an intelligent designer would design such an animal? I was just using some animals as examples, and I don't know if that's the most recent one. I did a couple, I think after that. I did one called, it was like a kind of like the Empty Tomb, where I had plans for doing other videos, but I just did one, and that was Idioms of Ignorance. I think was later than that. Anyway,
Okay.
I talk about the heart and the kidney being believed to be where the center of emotion and cognition was, and so I spend 4 videos showing Bible verses that reflect that ancient belief that, you know, when people got scared, suddenly this thing in their chest started beating hard. So they figured emotions must be emanating from this thing in their chest. So anyway, I did that video, but I thought that was after that Bonehead Design one, but I can't, I mean, with 1,000 videos, I can't be sure.
Either way, it's been, well, that was 4 years ago. So now it's like TJ said, it's been all music. So what do you plan on ever revisiting the topic that made you famous, or are you going to, how's this music going? Are you in a band? And TJ's a musician, so he probably has some questions for you too.
No, I'm not in a band. I won't be in a band. That's not something I'm interested in. I was in a band in 1982. We did like 2 years of rock, pop, playing just bars and stuff. But I mean, I've done like some session work on guitar in studios, but I never was, I guess I never was at a point where I could do it full time. I was always, you know, just, I don't know. It's my upbringing. I didn't have an upbringing that where my parents were like, you can do it. My dad wasn't really there. You've heard the God that wasn't there. Well, yeah. It's like the dad that wasn't there. He was there, but he wasn't. And then my mom wore the pants in the family, and it was you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. And so I was 18 years old, and I was like, what am I going to do in life? I don't know. And I went to college because, you know, that's what my mom said. Well, you can go to college. So anyway, it just, I don't know, the music thing, it didn't ever completely click. But I started playing guitar when I was 11, and I played piano before that for like 2 days when I was, I don't know, 9, and I hated it because she made me read these dots on a piece of paper and try to, how do you look at the paper and your fingers at the same time? I'm not into this. I quit, and that was like BS in my mind, in my kid mind. I said, this is BS. I don't want to look at no page. I want to know the music part of it.
I just want to hear it and be able to play. Yeah.
Look, I don't need to be able to read to be able to talk and hear somebody talk. I don't want to see no scribbles on no piece of paper. I just, the notes were what I was interested in. And she was teaching me, now this little squiggle, you have to hold it for, no, just, it totally.
Theory kind of just like evaded you, yeah.
If she had said, okay, this is a C chord, just remember that, and then you can do another one up here an octave higher, and there's 3 ways you can do it because there's 3 notes, so you can start on any one of 3. If she had shown me a little easy song, some music theory, like I was on the guitar, that's what this guy, he's just, put your fingers here, you know what you just played? A G chord. And from that simple thing, I just, you know, a couple of months of that, I was like, I got this. And then I quit, and I started learning, you know, all that mid-70s stuff, Kiss songs and Ted Nugent, and finally it culminated in one night. I had headphones on, as I always would at night when I go to sleep. I put the headphones on, listen to something. It was Elvis record, you know, or some radio, and I happened to have it on a local rock station, and they played the first side of Van Halen's first album, and I'm like, I don't know, 15 or however old I was, 16. What was that? 1978.
1977 or 8, yeah.
Was it 8?
I think it was 8, maybe.
So I'm like 3 years. Okay, so I'm like 14. I'm in the bed. I've been playing Ted Nugent and Kiss songs, kind of, you know,
awesome.
I'm pretty good. And all of a sudden, you know, it's just like, it's running with the devil.
Running with the devil, yeah.
And I'm just like, for the next, you know, 20 minutes, however long the album side is, I'm laying in bed, 14 years old, going, and I'm like speechless the whole time. I'm like, how does his guitar sound that way? What the hell is he doing? I have no idea. It's this blues, it's this mangling of blues and tiny bit of classical with this echo and the tapping, and it was like a notch above what I'd been doing. So I was like, oh my God. So I just always had been tinkering with the guitar from way back. And so it's always been there. It's just I didn't really do it professionally like all the time. So I've always loved the music.
Definitely
stuff.
therapeutic. I mean,
yeah. I mean, for me, I come home from school. I had this Les Paul copy and an L5, a Gibson, Lab Series L5, the same amp that Ty Tabor used on all those early King's X albums. I just didn't know it.
King's X, yes. People don't know about them. I like them.
Yeah. So I had this Les Paul clone. It was really good. It was a Hohner, like an Alpine white with the gold hardware. It was like $300 something back then, and whatever
that
year.
Was a lot of money for a guitar.
77. Yeah, I think. Let's see, 70. Yeah, 77 is when I got it.
I'll say, okay, so I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of any aesthetics, music, art, poetry, literature, architecture. I mean, every once in a while, there's maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 songs that come on the radio that I even get some feels out of one way or the other. So I'm just kind of a robot in that sense. And I know that I'm an anomaly. That's all right. I'm comfortable with it. But you did one. There's a couple that I listened to on your channel.
Heart by Rush was one of my favorites that you've done.
Oh, but
I'm a
it was
huge
a
Rush
doc
fan, like a huge Rush fan.
Well,
go ahead.
Kind of piggyback off this whole vocal part of it. I just started to question whether I would be able to start singing these higher pitched songs by using software to pitch shift my voice into those higher registers. Because as you can tell, my voice is kind of deep. If I relaxed and wasn't so tense all the time, it'd be down in here in a deep baritone. I can go down in the bass if I want to, you know what I'm saying? But I could get weed. So I have a really deep voice, actually, but you wouldn't know it because I always talk a little higher than what it really wants to be. So I thought I'd done so many guitar covers, right? I mean, I don't know how many, but then I thought I had sang some songs like very odd, just various ones, trying to sing some rock and stuff, and When You Wish Upon a Star and Across the Universe and things that were some country songs. And then I started to wonder, I pitched myself up 1-2 semitones. Then I started to wonder, could I even do a Dio song? Could I do a Steve Perry song? Would it completely blow out the quality if I pitched me up like by 7 semitones?
Steve Perry, I think I read something online where he has the 3rd biggest octave range of any singer. I think Mariah Carey is 2nd. And I would just, I wonder, not to put you on the spot, do you know who's got the most?
Some random person on YouTube that has like this.
Oh no, I'm talking just a normal rock singer that everyone knows. Like
just to put your mind at ease a little bit, Jim. Like Steve Perry does a very convincing falsetto. His falsetto sounds natural.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's not necessarily his natural range.
It doesn't have to be. Just you can go down to the low TruthSurge bass all the way up to a falsetto, but I think it's an 8 octave range. Mike Patton from Faith No More, and he was in some other bands, but Mike Patton, if you YouTube Mike Patton and vocal range, man, it's just insane.
Yeah, he's got a nice range. I mean, I don't keep track of I think 8 octaves is exaggeration. That's just my opinion.
That sounds just almost impossible, right?
I think 6 octaves would be about it. Most people have a 3 octave range, and then singers 3.5 to 4. Anything past that is unusual.
It's like superhuman.
So 6 would be like you're pushing it way far at that point. 7, I don't know. I mean, it would be just unusable. I mean, you couldn't really sing, I guess. It'd be that whistle stuff. You could produce it, but you wouldn't do a word with it. So,
but it was a video in particular. It was a Dawkins cover, Alone Again, and that one, boy, I hadn't felt that from music I can't remember last time. I mean, it gave me the goosebumps. The hairs were standing up on my neck. But your version of Dawkins, Alone Again, I think it was that. It might have been Journey, the Faithfully one. Which maybe later on, I would love to hear a couple bars, but if you're not in the mood, but that really got me. It got me right in the feels.
Yeah, I always liked Dokken back in the day. I thought his guitar tone was real cool. It just sounded so mid-rangey and raw and just it was like it was that growl. It almost sounded like it was growling when he would hit those power chords. And so I always was attracted to his and so many other guitar players' tones, Boston, of course, and Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen, all those guys that had kind of this unique sound. You know, I was like, wow, that's cool. And I always tried to copy those people. I was always turning knobs on my amp and the EQ. You know, I had a little MXR 10-band EQ I plugged into, and I was trying to manipulate to try and mimic those things. So I've always been doing that. I don't know why, but as a kid, I had like 2 cassette recorders, and I was doing multi-track way back in like, I bet the late 60s when I was like 9 years old. It was a natural thing to do. I'm like, I can record me on this one, then record me and the tape recorder back onto this other one, and then just keep doing that. It just was like, it was like, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. If you have 2 separate recorders, that should be the first thing you you think about is I'm gonna get me. And so I was doing all that stuff before I even knew it was like special or anything. But I never like got so far as like, okay, I'm working in a real studio. It was in regular jobs and stuff. So, but yeah.
Chris, you can jump in anytime you want. I've got one last question before we jump up. I know we only have like an hour and a half, so I want to hit just the music and then get to some Jesus mythicism. But I noticed one of your videos, you complained about a copyright strike. I was wondering if how did that happen, and how does that work? The copyright laws, singing a cover song. Can you get in trouble with that legally, or?
My opinion or understanding would be that, I mean, there's certain times where you can copy somebody else's material and it's okay. It's called fair use. And it's just laid out, like if it's for a news article or if you're doing it in a classroom to teach. And I think.
Wait, guys, sorry, TruthSurge, 1 second. Apparently we're having a spiral of death.
Oh, no.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, we're frozen. All right. This happened last time. Damn it.
Are we?
Yeah, we're frozen on live. Okay. I'm going to have to reload. I'm going to end this chat. Sorry, guys. This happened last time. Once we reloaded it, though, it went perfect. So I'm going to end this chat. Everyone get out, and then I'll send everyone the new link via email. Oh, wait.
You don't have to.
No, it's reloaded. It looks like they're saying we're reloaded now. We're good.
Nobody touch anything.
Yeah.
Nathaniel said, oh, okay. Nathaniel just said the viewer. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to stay on. If let's just start with TruthSurge. Can you end the call and come right back in? Oh, everybody. F5. Hit F5. Man, where's my F5 goddamn button?
I don't have an F5 on a cell phone, unfortunately.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, so do I need to do something?
Yeah, TruthSurge, if you could just end the call and come right back in.
Okay, leave call.
Yep. All right, we'll see if it just works for you. Oh, it says
it just said just the viewers just have.
You know what, TJ, if you could too, since you don't have an F5 button, and then Chris, if you could just hit your F5. All right. It's just me now. TJ, you're still in?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And there's TruthSurge.
And they're back.
Okay, so everybody's back. So
hey, now y'all are flipping back full screen back and forth.
Oh, it wasn't like that before?
No, y'all were just little tiny inch-long icons at the lower right.
Okay, let me type in.
I can see boats on your paintings now and everything.
Oh, nice. Didn't see that before. That's so weird.
Is that a Monet? Stupid.
What's that from? What's that from?
Is that Bill and Ted's or something like that? I don't know. I can't remember.
No, I just made it up. I'm just
wow. So I'm so used to people quoting movie references.
No,
I'm not used to-
everybody does that to me, and I'm like, I don't watch movies. I don't even know what they're talking a different language. I don't know.
Well, spontaneous wit and independent thought is much cooler. Oh, okay. So last music question.
Okay.
So the copyright strike. One of your videos you complained about. I think you got a community strike on YouTube for a copyright. Was it something with dealing with doing cover songs on your channel?
Yeah, that was it. I was just doing guitar play-alongs, and back several years ago, they were making this strikes on your channel and all that. I don't think they're doing that anymore. I think anymore, what I've seen in the last, say, 2 years or 3 years, if you do something that's copyrighted and they find a match, they'll just say, hey, you've got a copyright notice. You're not in any trouble. There just may be some ads showing up. But if you do a song like Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue, then it's going to get blocked all across wherever. You know, there's certain songs that are flagged and they just get blocked. So it's like I might want to sing Shout at the Devil, but I can't do it because I know it's going to get blocked. So what's the point? So I don't think they strike your channel anymore. They just block it or send you some email about ads.
Well, twice. It was the Mormon Church and the Oprah Winfrey show. I got you're not in trouble, but now Oprah is getting all your money for this video.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that kind of deal.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, if you meet the fair use criterion, one of them, then you ought to be okay. But no, I've disputed a few of those, and once or twice the person said, okay, I'll relinquish this thing and let it be up there. I think one of them was an Eagles song I sang.
Which
Hotel California.
Of course.
But I love the title of the video where you talk about the copyright infringement. It was called GooTube copyright bullshit. GooTube bullshit.
Yeah, I'm just not happy that I'm sitting here playing a karaoke guitar or vocal thing just for the fun of it. Nobody's gonna download that thinking it's from the album. I mean, it may sound close, but you know what I mean? I'm just doing a karaoke thing and having fun. And here they are, these big record companies. We're so big and rich from all them, you know, people that we'll do this for you and take 80% of your profits. And then it's like now they come into YouTube and go, okay, we have so much money and pull. We're gonna basically force you to implement a software that tries to go out and look at all this database of these special songs that we don't want on YouTube, and it's going to match the audio and go, there it is, and it's going to automatically flag and block them and stuff like that. I'm like, one baby was singing, and then the little baby was singing this Michael Jackson song in a video, and it blocked that one too.
I always thought that was strange because you can, as like a performing band, you can do cover songs, right, in a public venue.
Yeah.
And nobody bats an eye, right? But you do it on the internet on a video camera and people lose their minds. I just never understood that.
This is a great segue. Chris, do you have anything before we move on to the meat of the topic?
You guys are talking about like Journey and Dawkins, and if you want to bring in some bands from like 1990 or later, then I'll be all over it. But
I'm too old.
Yep, that's what he called all three of us old, I think. Okay, so one more thing on this. So TruthSurge, I'm sure you're aware of the adpocalypse that just happened a few months ago. And did it affect your channel? How much do you rely on your channel for monetization? Is it just a hobby for you? Did you see a noticeable decline in the amount of ad revenue? And are things better now?
I don't do AdSense or any of that stuff. Wow. I don't make a penny off my channel, other than some people randomly once in a while they ask, how can I contribute, or you know, that kind of thing. And so I just made a Patreon account. Don't ask me what it is. Well, I guess it's just look up TruthSurge, but I just made that because a couple of people were asking me, and I don't make any money off of it. I just done all this because I enjoyed it. So I don't know what this adpocalypse even is. I don't have, I use some ad blocker, so I guess I don't see them.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's interesting. All right. So we're switching gears now. And someone in the comment section, someone named Only This, and he's saying that in Galatians, okay, so before you came on, when you were having your technical difficulties, we had already started talking about I have three what I guess I consider smoking guns for being a historicist, that thinking Jesus actually existed as a human being. The first one is Galatians 1:19. So we were talking about it, and someone in the chat is saying, because I contended that Paul in Galatians 1:19 he met Jesus's brother James, and I'll read Galatians 1:19 verbatim. I saw none of the other apostles, only James, the Lord's brother. I think in some versions it says Jesus's brother, but I could be mistaken. So he corrects me, and it looks like it's warranted that it was Jesus's brother. Is that good enough? Do you find that compelling at all, TruthSurge, or is there a explanation for that?
Well, I would say that well, from my point of view, I see a puzzle with, you know, X percentage filled in for the Jesus myth theory. There's, you know, like what, 80% or 85% or 90%, whatever you want to claim, but a big majority of the stuff is filled in for me because I've just happened to read some things and it made sense, and so then I see a few tiny things that need explaining, and that, of course, that verse would be one of them among several. I cover all this in my Jesus, Hebrew, Human, or Mythical Messiah videos. I take time to cover something like 30 of these different verses that would seem to argue against a mythical Jesus. So you could look those up.
Yeah.
I'll go into detail, and I believe I talk about this one too. So the thing is, it says, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the better translation is brother of the Lord, or Lord's brother. You could say it that way, brother of the Lord. It's not entirely clear that he really means a blood brother. I mean, it's just not entirely clear that a sibling, you know, it could be, maybe that was a term for, you know, apostles who were in, you know, were like close. I mean, there's several different ways you could look at it, considering the fact that I don't think anywhere else you can find in Paul's, or the letters attributed to Paul, that he believed that this Jesus was on earth. So I'm trying to take the whole picture, and that verse, I could just easily interpret it and saying, well, you know, James, the brother of the Lord, not the brother of the Lord, but a brother of the Lord. But so it just depends, you know.
I was going to say, if that's the interpretation, if you want to say brother, like as in the sense like we are all brothers in Christ, like that, in verse 1:18, he mentions Cephas, but he does not refer to Cephas as a brother of the Lord, when I would think that if they were talking about a brotherhood of believers or something like that, then there wouldn't be a reason to call out James as a brother and not Cephas as also a brother.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a valid point.
If you've already touched on that and I just haven't found it, I'm just going to dig through your library and try to find it. But I just found that compelling. Second one is the criterion of embarrassment. The fact that the Messiah, the Messiah in Hebrew, was predicted in prophecy to be this coming with a sword to deliver the Jews from bondage, and you know, from the Roman or whatever. At the time, the Romans had the thumb on him, that he was going to come and it was going to be by force. That this was going to be, you know, he was going to be the you know, is going to be in a warlike capacity. And so when he gets strung up on that cross, I think that caught his apostles way off guard. I think it was embarrassing. And the fact that it appears in the Bible, in the New Testament, is at least some evidence that maybe he did exist as a human being, since it didn't work out at all like prophecy had predicted?
Well, I don't. There's a lot to talk about. First of all, what's embarrassing to us may not have been embarrassing to them. Also, if you're talking about a fiction writer who's not a Christian, perhaps even the author of Mark wasn't a Christian. I'm pretty certain he was a Roman. He uses Roman watches, you know, the way Romans divided the day into watches, and he uses other terms that lead you to believe that he's a Roman, you know, living in Rome or been raised in Rome, whatever. And so if he's writing fiction and he's not a Christian, there is no criterion of embarrassment. A fiction author is going to write what he wants to get the end result, the punchline at the end. Well, if Jesus died and then he came back to life, there is no embarrassment. That's even greater than if he had just died and didn't do anything. He just got killed and he was out of the picture. Then that would be embarrassing, because there goes your Messiah. But if he died and now he's raised back to life, better, bigger, and better than before, where's the embarrassment? It's like a twist. It's a plot twist. So if you're a fiction writer, there is no criterion of embarrassment. It's just whatever your end goal is supposed to be. And of course, the first gospel, Mark, is fiction. It's fiction. Matthew and Luke clone Mark. John copies from the synoptics, but he's changing a bunch of stuff. And so you have a writer who's writing what he wants because it's fiction. Yep. I mean, there's in original manuscripts of Mark, the leper comes up to Jesus. If you're willing, you can heal me. And Jesus gets angry at the leper. Well, that's embarrassing. So later copies don't have that. So
is that right?
So you're trying to say, well, it's embarrassing, therefore it's historical. I don't think that's logical. Yeah. Because a fiction writer is going to put whatever he wants in, whether it's embarrassing or not, to get the end result. He's to build to that punchline, which Mark does, the empty tomb. You don't even see Jesus at the end of original Mark,
right?
Without, because those last verses are obviously, to me, in my opinion, added on. Maybe they were lost, but we don't see.
That's consensus. 16, 9 through 20. It's consensus that was a late addition. So yeah, you're right.
There's various endings to the Gospel of Mark in certain manuscripts, and then there's some, I think, without it. And so it ends with the empty tomb, which, in my opinion, I do fiction writing. I've probably written over 40 short stories. So that's a much more sophisticated ending than having Jesus show up. It's mysterious. It's obvious that he rose from the dead by having just the tomb there. You don't need a Jesus appearing. So Mark's fiction writing. Mark's fiction writing is better than Matthew's cloning of Mark and trying to fix all the problems he saw in Mark to improve Jesus's power. Where in Mark, Jesus couldn't do great miracles in his hometown because the people didn't believe. Well, Matthew couldn't have that. He didn't have that. He said, oh, Jesus could do the miracles. He just chose not to. There's tons of those kinds of edits from Matthew to Mark. So what I'm saying is, whether it was embarrassing or not, I don't think that is any kind of support that it was historical. If you're writing fiction,
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Chris, TJ, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I got my last one after.
Yeah, I mean, if you want. Sorry, go ahead, TJ.
Well, no, I mean, I think I think TruthSurge makes a good point that just because somebody wrote in a contradiction into a story, so it was inconvenient, if believed on the face of it, that you wouldn't be opposed to this certain thing, and that being opposed to that certain thing makes it all the more believable that thing was extant. Why does if somebody was writing, it's like he says, it's like if somebody is writing a fiction story, they would put things in the story that made it more plausible, right? Like, why wouldn't they do that? To say, oh, look, this is a contradiction here. If this contradiction wasn't here, it would be less believable. So this contradiction is clearly here. So clearly it's more believable now, right? Like, I mean, if you were creating a story, creating a narrative, you would do anything that you could to lend credibility to the narrative. So to me, like what he says is like saying that just because something doesn't agree with the narrative, that makes it more believable. I don't think that's very logical or reasonable.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, if you want to talk about, you know, fiction structure, then, you know, what do you have in a classic 3-act story? You have that moment at the end of Act 2 where it seems like all is lost, that all of your efforts have been for naught, and it's followed up in Act 3 by the great final triumph. And what is more despairing when you know, your hero, your great leader appears to be dead, and your movement appears to be ended before it can begin, and all of a sudden you find out, oh, he's not dead after all. Yay, we win, guys. And
that's literary, just like TruthSurge was saying. But TruthSurge, you did allude to, you suspected that the anonymous author of Mark was a Roman, but do you also think that he was a Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% convinced. I mean, for all I know, the whole thing's a satire, and we just don't get the satire.
Well,
I mean, how do we know? You know, you could take that part where the Roman centurion or whatever, Jesus gives up the ghost and he says, truly, this was the Son of God. Well, did he mean I believe, or was he mocking him? I mean,
well, that sounds so pulled literary. It's just so rectally derived. There's no way that could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, maybe we read it as this, even the Roman guard believed. That makes sense. But what if it just was simple satire? And I mean, what if this sarcasm? I mean, what if the guard was like, yeah, that was the Son of God, because he just died.
Sarcasm. Right. I never heard that. I've never heard that explanation.
Yeah,
I'm saying let's look at every angle, because I mean, what do we know? Maybe it was a homework assignment for this guy, and that was his task. But one thing I think he did, though, I think he was trying to bring in, and maybe this was a cool thing for those writers back in the day. They would take all these sources that the authors they looked up to, like Homer and so forth, and they would pull pieces from everything and try to merge it into their story and make a kind of, not a copy, but a new thing with all these references in there. And I talk about that from McDonald's book and in my series of videos, but I think that was a goal of Mark.
Like an assimilation or something.
Yeah, where they take all these different inputs that they've read and try to squeeze as much as they can into their story. So, I mean, you know, was he a Christian? Honestly, that's Christian's a misnomer anyway, because what is Christianity? I mean, it depends on where you are and what time you're talking about. I mean, 1,000 denominations.
That's true.
I don't know, but it could have just been a simple, you know, like a play written down to make Romans laugh. I don't know. I'm just saying that I'm not sure exactly why Mark wrote Mark. I mean, it just seems so fictional and so much like a mini Odyssey of Homer. It's like, I don't know.
TJ and Chris, you guys haven't been exposed to TruthSurge yet, have you? So we talked about it a little bit before when you were still experiencing your technical difficulties, but man, I envy you two, because go and start it. And really it's good all the way through, but around video number 9, and I think from about 9 to 16, he goes it's based on a book, but I see a lot of independent thought. He did his homework on this, and it's just in depth comparisons between the book of, and I only like talking about the book of Mark, like just like TruthSurge said, Matthew is 90%. Well, because Mark was the first one, and 90% of Mark appears in Matthew, and 65% of Mark appears in Luke, because those are a control C and a control V. It's obvious. There is no debating it. Though whoever wrote Matthew and Luke aped, just parroted Mark, and there's no reason to even talk about any other synoptics other than Mark. So TruthSurge compares Mark with Homer's Odyssey, and man, and I re-listened to a couple of them last night, and I forgot. Just I envy you. Just you're in for a treat. He compares when he's talking about the Cyclops, and there's okay, so Jesus is always talking to the sons of Zebedee, I think it is, James and John, not James, his brother, but another James. So James and John, and it's like 16 different allusions to it in the references in the Bible to these two brothers that Jesus is always just happens to be walking up on and giving them some advice, right? Sometimes they're fishing or whatever, but they're always talked about. It's always John and the brother of the son of Zebedee and his brother James.
No,
right?
It's other way.
Oh, it's other way around. Okay.
James first, and then
okay.
John.
Right. And then if you go back and look at Homer's Odyssey, and it's Castor and Pollux.
Polydeuces or Pollux.
Right. So, I mean, just watch the videos of the similarities. It's a knockout punch. Whoever wrote Mark had to have been familiar with the Odyssey, and it is a glaring, just a copy and paste job, a lot of it.
And I culminate it to this, what I think is the knockout punch, which I'm not going to spoil for anybody, but it culminates in that sons of Zebedee, you know, what Jesus named them or renamed them, that Boanerges thing, which you only find in Mark. So that's like, to me, that's like just a knockout punch when you discover what that really means, and how those two disciples, let's don't call them apostles, they're disciples in the Gospels and they're apostles in the epistles. So I like to make that distinction. Mm-hmm. In the epistles, there's no disciples because, well, there was no earthly Jesus. So you can't have both. People interchange them though, but you know, in my mind, the disciples would be people in the Gospels that were there with Jesus. So anyway, yeah, it's very compelling in my opinion, and you know, that's just, I'm very like, you got to convince me. I'm very skeptical.
I have one question. Is the word apostle in any way derived from the word apostate?
I don't know.
I'd have to go to etymonline.com.
Yeah.
I'm like really wondering that.
I bet you there's some.
Not to make a tangent or anything like that.
It probably is.
They probably have the same root word or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Up until recently, I used to argue that apologist and to give an apology. Yeah. No, I used to argue that there's no connection. And
there is.
It seems logical that there would be, but I remember reading that there is no apologia, you know, that is to speak in defense of the faith, and it had absolutely nothing to do with to apologize for something, to say I'm sorry. But if you work the etymology back far enough, they are kind of related.
Yeah, because you have to say you're sorry, but like I'm sorry, but this is like my defense of this thing.
I'm sorry, but the Kalam cosmological argument. No.
All right. Okay. So regarding now, I've heard a lot of, since we're on apologists, I've heard some arguments, justifications for what you are talking about in your video series, all these similarities, and I've heard some really slippery arguments, and they have to warm up before they practice their mental gymnastics, but I've heard some really slippery ways around it. Well, you see, it's really like this, and if you really look at it, they're totally different. It can't be copying off of this old piece of fiction. So, have you seen a lot of that? And also, you know, related to that, do you get a lot of hate or people online, or in your comments section that, yeah, have you gotten anything compelling as from Christians as any responses to your videos?
Mostly good comments, and then there's not really that many fundy types commenting. Mostly like somebody who just knows, you know, a lot because they've been kind of reading these things, and maybe some. I got one young kid who's just was like, seemed like they want to be like, they act like they know everything, but the way I like to work is like, well, why don't we take one topic instead of stringing out 50 of them, and then, you know, like scatter shot approach where like, how could I address all that? Just, you know, so I get people that do this diarrhea of how much they've read, and all these scholars, they do the name a scholar game. I couldn't name 10 scholars probably. It doesn't matter who said a thing. All it matters is that argument sound, and is it supported with evidence that anybody could go verify? I don't care if my dog said it. If it stands up to scrutiny, I'm going to believe it. So I don't know a lot of scholars. I just know when I read something and then I go snoop around and I'm like, man, like Dennis MacDonald's book, The Homeric Epics and the Gospel of Mark. That's where all that Odyssey stuff in my series came from, if anybody wants to know. So I got that on a recommendation or a review by Richard Carey. And I said, wow, that sounds interesting. I bought the book. It was expensive. I read it and I was like, wow, this is mind boggling. Cause see, I used to be a Christian. So I was under this, you know, impression that, you know, Jesus is the Son of God. He died for my sins and I'd go to heaven. Well, after years and years of study, you know, that all fell down. And then now all these other pieces slowly falling into place, like, you know, Earl Doherty, Jesus, a Puzzle, you know, that whole Jesus myth thing. Richard Carrier reviewed it. I was like, wow, that sounds interesting. I could have taken it or left it. I was already an atheist, but I read the book and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is very compelling. And I just kept following it up. So most of the people commenting on my videos, they're good comments. I mean, I always say, look, if you find an error in my videos, let me know and I'll post an annotation or I'll fix it. And mostly they're just typos and things like that. So I try to be very factual and you know, things that I could at least stand behind and get behind.
I may ask, what the brand of Christianity?
Oh, it was like Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist.
Good old Southern Baptist.
Evangelical.
Yeah.
I was going door to door for a while. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, can we come in and talk to you about our church? Yeah, Evangelism Explosion. Have you heard of that? James Kennedy's from Florida. He has this little book, and it's a class that people go to, and you go through this whole thing, and you get your you get your certificate at the end. And oh man,
Chris, did you want to add anything?
Not at this point, other than I really didn't need anything more to add to my YouTube watch later list, but I guess I'll have to power through some stuff. I don't even watch videos that I'm in at this point because I have so much other stuff to work through. But yeah, it sounds like an interesting idea with the Homeric epics. I've heard that kind of every now and again. I hear it. I'd be interested to see in detail, see what the connections are.
Well, subscribe to him and hit that bell for notification. Well, all he does now is the music stuff, but go back and look at his old library of the excavating the empty tomb, and there's some other video series on there. I mean, they're just all really well researched. In line with this, you did a separate video you're talking about a specific troll. It's kind of what I think you're talking about, the same guy here, where he just does a Gish gallop on you. You know, Dwayne Gish is known for just hitting you with lots of, like, hitting you in the face with a shotgun blast of questions, knowing that you can't answer them all in a reasonable amount of time, and not really citing his sources, and just asking you to do all the work. And so you did this video talking about this troll that you had, and let me find it. He went on and on about how he's an expert on the Bible, quote unquote, but you said he didn't actually want to take the time to watch your videos, but he wanted you to take all your time out to answer his questions. And when you asked him, could you summarize my basic argument so I know where you stand, and he was unwilling to even do that. So I've seen that.
I don't.
You did a separate video on it. It was maybe, I don't know how long ago, but I saw it was a standalone video you did. It's on your channel, and you were specifically commenting on a specific troll that you were getting. And he was coming on a lot, just claiming to be a Bible expert, and couldn't steel man you, which is, you know, explaining your point well enough to where you're satisfied with it before he, you know, he gave his refutations. But I thought that was funny.
That's too long ago.
Yeah, probably about 4 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you had the name of that person or their YouTube name, I might remember it. But in general, yeah. I mean, like I was saying, that's what I find. They try to they spread out everywhere, and they, like, in one post they're going to cover like 10 different things, and it's like, look, let's just talk about one thing and see if we can figure out if we can see if this is true or not. And then I think a lot of these people don't want to slow down, get out of their hamster wheel, and actually take the time to do it, because it takes a lot of time. It takes willpower and a love for not being wrong, and a love for truth, all these things. And it's very difficult for a lot of people. I just got lucky because I think my brain everything needs to make sense to my brain. I have kind of a scientific brain, but also artsy. And so things need to make sense, and Christianity didn't make sense. And so that's just it. I mean, let's take a piece at a time. And I think if you had the time to do that, I think most people would at least come to some different understanding of what they currently have. They may not become an atheist, but I know I did. So that's just where I ended up. But
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because Jim astounds me sometimes, because he puts out these YouTube videos, and
astounds me all the time.
Yeah, in this one specific way, though, where he actually, you know, takes a deep dive into his YouTube comments and reads everything and responds to. Jim, do you respond to literally everything, or
no?
As much
just
as
to really. We've only done it twice. TJ and I did it once, and I think Cyrus the Skeptic.
Good.
Cyrus the Skeptic, we did it once, but you know, every couple of months I collect up the ones that kind of pop out at me, all the death threats and you're going to burn in hell ones. But you know, there's so many of those. But if it's something that pops out at me, and we just read hate mail, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. My point being, you know, Jim will actually take the time to actually go through them and sort through them and try and respond to some of the good ones. Whereas I'm on YouTube myself, and I read the comments on the random stuff that I watch. It's not even as controversial as religious topics, where you can watch a 5-minute SpongeBob clip, and some comments will somehow be about white supremacy or some nonsense on there, where it's just trolls and losers. And in your experience, do you find that like, what's the signal to noise ratio? Like, how much of the comments that you get is actual good, productive feedback and interesting subjects to talk about, and how much of it is just people trying to rile you up or say their piece or present the same bad arguments that have gone through 100 times?
Most of the comments I get are positive. Some are trolly types. But what I've noticed is on the videos that I made called 10 questions Christians can't answer, and then 10 more questions Christians can't answer, those were, I did those in a kind of, I don't know, a kind of smug way. My delivery was kind of smug, and they were, you know, just there was not a lot of detail and study behind it. It was just like I put up a verse and I would say something like, you know, something was wrong about that, and I'd move on to the next one. I'd ask some question, like, if this is true, why this? You know, it was very simplistic. And I mean, there's like 500,000 views on that video, and I would say 90% of the comments on there are Christians trying to answer all those questions. Like, how did the kangaroos get back from the Middle East after the ark landed in the Mount Ararat region and all the animals disembarked? Well, how did the kangaroos get to Australia? I mean, what did they do? Hop that far and then hop across the ocean to
and then
a small.
There were no skeletons along the way.
No fossils.
At
And
all.
then how did they migrate that far and leave absolutely no trace that they were ever in the Middle East or along the way towards and the same could be said to all the animals, polar bears, everything that's not native. How did they get back to the places we find them today without leaving any trace? That's just one of the questions. And I've gotten tons. I mean, I've gotten so many comments on that video. I finally put up a note and said, I'm not responding to comments anymore because I have this anal thing about me that if you comment, I usually reply to it. So I've probably spent 2 years solid of my life just replying to YouTube comments. I mean, so that's the way I've been doing it. It's like somebody's comments, I'd say thanks or I engage. But man, those 2 videos, it just was a time black hole for me because it was like there's no arguing or discussing with those kind of people. Jesus is Lord. You have to move on, and they're not, you know, it's what I believe is so far removed from what they would have any hope of understanding. Jesus never existed. Mark copied fiction to create his own fiction. That was copied by Matthew and Luke. And then John kind of pulled what he wanted from all those. And the epistles in general were people who'd never believed an earthly Jesus. He was just another deity up in heaven who would come to earth at the end of time and take everybody else, you know, that was still alive that believed in him. And even the dead people, take them all up to be with God in heaven. They don't believe none of that. They you know, it's completely different. So I've had mostly good comments, and then I've tried to engage a few people, and then I tend to leave it. And I say, thank goodness I don't have a great commission to convince anybody of anything in life. I just try to make a compelling case, and I say what I want to say in the clearest way I know how, and I try not to stretch things to make the case stronger. So I hope at least I've succeeded in that area where I've presented a good case and addressed some of the other things people say, oh, what about this? So I don't know.
It's important to engage with your fans, at least periodically, but I'm sure you've experienced this. I mean, you've got way more subscribers than we do, but even at our small point, we get 800 comments a month now on average. And we do our best to respond to them and engage with the audience, but it's logistically impossible now. Let me switch over. There's a really good comment on the live chat right now from Nathaniel. He was talking to a believer about the Kalam cosmological argument. It was just the other evening, and the person kept going, and then Nathaniel asked him, okay, what is the first premise? Or he's asking him to just explain your, he kept saying he kept quoting the Kalam cosmological argument, but this Christian couldn't even explain premise 1 and 2 himself. So, I mean, sometimes they make us do all the work. Like when they say the second law of thermodynamics, first thing I'm going to say is, what's the first law of thermodynamics? If they don't know, they're not doing their homework. We're not going to even start the conversation.
Yeah, in general, I avoid the whole, where did the universe come from? Because there's no good answer. And that has zilch to do with whether a particular holy book is true or not.
Yeah.
So I don't go and waste my time talking about where the universe came from, because number one, if it's always there, that's illogical. We don't know of things that have no beginning. That's illogical. Number two, if it was poofed into existence by another being from out of nothing, that's illogical. We don't know of anything that just magically poofs into existence. We don't have an example of that. You could say, well, what about those, antimatter or whatever? I don't know. I would say that scientists don't know what they're looking at, because logically nothing poofs into existence.
Yeah.
That's illogical. So none of the explanations for the origin of the universe is logical and makes sense. I can't, you know, I can't buy into any of those. So at the end of the day, I say I don't know where matter came from, because none of the offered explanations are logical to me. And then I get up the next day, brush my teeth, and I go on with what I can figure out. And the thing is, I have a Bible in my lap. Okay. I know where this came from. It came from men, and it came from about 800 years of writing and editing. So anyway, I avoid that whole William Lame Craig stuff. I do not
say William Lame Craig.
I do not have time. I cannot
shit.
tolerate this guy. It's like, dude, I can't even watch him.
You know what?
Non-caused. I can't even. It's so stupid.
Caused, but then he doesn't offer the explanation of why it has to be caused by the thing that he's describing. Like, what the fuck? Like,
right. But I will give him some credit. He seems to be sincere in his conviction, and I know he's not being. I rarely, in fact, I do not find him intellectually dishonest ever compared to his counterparts. So I will give him that.
Yeah, I'm all for a person with convictions being able to say exactly what they believe and why. I mean, I'm all for that. I'm totally against censorship. I want Christians to be able to say what they believe, why they believe it, and engage and everything. And the thing is, we should have that same right to say, all right, now this is why I don't believe it. And so then let the chips fall however they may. But I get a lot of Christians go, why are you trying to do this? And why do you hate God? And why are you, and I'm like, look, you're able to share your beliefs. I ought to be able to share mine. I'm not forcing these onto anybody. I'm just stating what I believe in a video. That must be very offensive, to you, because I'm not, in general, if you watch all my videos, I do not have a hardcore anti-Christian approach. I'm not bashing it as much as you might think. Like go watch Cult of Dusty, if you want to see bashing. But I tend to try and do funny stuff and not so insulting and educational stuff. So yeah, I'm just trying to get some things that I have discovered along the way, put them in videos and put them out there. So I do a little bit of comedy, and I've done some music parodies.
So you've been you mentioned, I think, that you're a voice actor for like the last decade or so. What's that like, and what kind of voices, anything that maybe we've seen?
Well, let me hang on. I try to keep like a little resume of things I've done, but yeah, I see it. Well, to make it real short, I got laid off of this regular job I was doing in 2007, and I had a lot of physical issues with my back. I've got 2 herniated discs in the thoracic region, and I got some kind of problem in my lower back, and then I'd injured both my quadriceps at this place. And I could hardly get out of a chair. And so I got laid off, and I spent the next 6 months basically recuperating physically. I cashed both of my 401ks in to live off of that. Had to borrow some money from my folks. And I was sitting around, thinking, what am I going to do now? And some guy on this painting website, I was doing some painting and airbrushing and stuff. And some guy said, oh, you do pretty good voices. And I was like,
some Bob Ross shit.
And so anyway, I just signed up on this voice website. I don't know why. I guess I thought, well, maybe I could earn an extra $1 or $2. So I signed up on this voice website, and I just started getting auditions, because you pay your $100 a year. Now it's $200 a year for me. And then you get auditions show up in your email. And the first one I got was an e-learning course. So it was just talking. It wasn't acting. It was just talking. I said, it ended up being 600 pages. And it took like 4 months or something. And I was pulling my hair out. It was the most crazy, frustrating thing because, you know, I have a little bit of this Southern accent in my voice and raised halfway in Mississippi. So, you know, it was like, how do I say this word? Why am I? It was the most frustrating thing. And I was questioning, man, I should not be in front of this microphone. And then I just kept doing it because I didn't know what else to do. So I just kept doing it. And I landed a few more jobs. Finally landed this game called Mushroom Age. It's a hidden object game. Anyway, so I did like 7 characters in that game. And I almost didn't land it because I thought the guy was pulling my leg. It's like he hired me for this, and he spelled out all the character voices from my website that he wanted me to use. And I was like, that can't be right, because, you know, but it was. I did it, and so I've been doing it. So I've done voices in Star Trek. I'm just going to list some of these. Star Trek Online. I've probably done 20 voices in there. Neverwinter.
Damn.
Neverwinter.
Nights.
Neverwinter Nights. I'm playing that right now.
Wow.
It's Neverwinter. I don't know about the nights, but
Neverwinter Nights. It's the Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
yeah,
there's Neverwinter.
Dungeon crawl.
Done like,
I played Neverwinter.
I don't know, maybe it's 30 characters now. Neverwinter Underdark.
30 freaking.
Neverwinter, The Maze Engine, Heroes of Newerth, Torchlight, Strife, anything with the engine, Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing, 1, 2, and 3. I've probably done 50 characters in those games.
You're fucking dude.
Earthrise, Payday 2.
Okay, when we're done with this, I need you to text me everything that you've done and anything that I have in my game library. I'm gonna go search for you now.
Lots of hidden object games. So let's see, what's some other good ones. Let's see, I don't know. And then there's Mushroom Age. Yeah, okay. And so just tons of these little hidden object games. Mystery of the Ancients, bunch of those. Let's see, Mystery Trackers, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. Grim Tales, League of Light.
Not League of Legends.
If you said League of Legends, TJ would melt. He would melt into his seat right now.
I haven't done League.
His head would literally explode.
Yeah. So anyway, bunch of these things, and then Lost Lands. I don't know. Let's see. Just all kind of.
That's good shit, man.
So anyway, let's see. I'm trying to find. I put most of the good ones at the top, and then some just random trailers. I did one thing that was in a baseball NBA All-Star game. I think it was 2015. I did a little spot in there, so I was on TV, but I didn't get to see it. I was sleeping at the time. Let's see, a bunch of like hardcore festivals, Intense Festival. I've done a bunch of those, like where I'm doing the real deep in a world. You know, that kind of in a world. So I do that.
Nice.
A bunch of, and I do like all the voices in this Morphle cartoon. You probably never saw it, but it's like a kid's cartoon on YouTube. Commercials. Let's see. What else?
In the live chat, Ralph is asking, did he do voice work for STO? What's that, TJ? Do you know?
Star Trek Online.
Star Trek Online. So you did actually do that?
Yeah.
So what characters were you in that? Can you remember?
Yeah, did you do any of the like the Janeway or Picard characters? Or?
Probably not any major characters. They're all minor things, like Commander Samuel Winters, Captain Walker, Tal Shiar, which is some Romulan, Captain Jurlek. Captain Jurlek, he's a
like
Klingon.
that's good shit though.
Is that
That's good shit.
Let's see, Devex, he's some old Romulan engineer, Kimek, Nausicaan pirate, male pirate, Torg the Klingon, some other commander, Zinkethi lieutenant, male Klingon guard, Klingon captain, Romulan captain, Klingon barker, Torg is a Klingon, Benzite. So there's a lot of bit parts.
Damn.
A lot of bit parts, and
this dude has done a lot of shit.
You're gonna get typecast as a Klingon if you keep doing Klingons, though. It sounds like it's mostly Klingon characters.
Whatever
because you got that low gruff voice,
right? Whatever they hire me for, I mean, I'm up for it because it's, it's always fun to try and see, can I do this? I don't know. What kind of weird, they want some accent, like that Bruno Battlehammer. I did that guy in the Neverwinter thing. And it's, I forget, it was like a Scottish accent, I think. Bruno Battlehammer. That was it. There we go. It was something deep and gruff like that.
Oh shit.
Where's me print? I'd have to listen to my voice, my file again to see how I sounded.
TJ, your boy Ralph Ellis is going ape shit on the live chat right now.
Dude, we fucking love this. This is fucking
But
awesome,
I
dude.
liked all the stuff I did in the
This
Van Helsing
guy.
games, man. I did some, if I must say so, the stuff I did in the Van Helsing games, those were really, really good. And then another game I did everything. I directed the voice actors. I did the voice acting. I did all the special effects in the voice sounds. It's Fantasy Commander 3. And
Nice.
I bet I did 25 characters myself, and I hired some other people. And the guy that did what was that little character on Jabba the Hutt's back? The guy that
Salacious Crumb.
Okay, the guy that
How do I know that? Holy shit.
Nerd.
How the fuck do
the
you
guy
know
that
that?
did his voice in that
How
Star
in the
Trek,
hell?
the guy that did his voice in that Star Trek movie. What are you guys doing?
That's the voice he had, the little dude on Jabba
well,
the
the
Hutt's
guy
back.
the guy that did his voice, Mark Dodson.
Yeah.
I hired him through Lonnie Manella. I hired him, and he was one of the guys I directed for that Fantasy Commander game. So Mark Dodson, me, Gleason Gray, and another lady.
John Gleason.
No, it's a Gray Gleason.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, and
thinking of Godless
another
Engineering.
lady, and we just divided up all the parts, and it was crazy because I hadn't directed other people before, and I was just like, okay, I took that whole project and I said, I'm gonna make this badass. And I mean, you wouldn't believe the effects. I mean, it's movie quality stuff. It's like demons coming out of the earth with these 15 voices talking. It's crazy, but I made $2,000 roughly, but it took a buttload of work and time. But I've never really played the game or seen it. Maybe it didn't turn out good. I don't know. But the voices are all really good and just.
So monetarily, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but it's nice getting on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, last 10 years, that's what I've been doing for a living. And then in my spare time, taking care of my dad. He's 94 years old and trying to, I can't do the big, long involved stuff anymore because I don't have the concentration for it and the time, the contiguous blocks of time. So I've just been doing like vocal and guitar junk.
That was my next question. How long did it take you to do each of your videos, all the research for your excavating the empty tomb?
It took me over a year just to do that one series.
And that's 37 videos. Yeah, break that down. Yeah, and that's probably cranking them out at a fast pace. I mean, the editing on it is, I don't know what kind of editing software you use, but I mean, we're still in our infancy on this channel, but I only can aspire to that kind of editing quality. That's really good stuff.
Oh, I appreciate it. I use Sony Vegas, and then I would use other things like Photoshop to make things, and then whatever I had, I use some 3D stuff and just bring it all together.
The internal
pieces, inside Sony Vegas, and then all the music. I would say 99% of all the music in that series I wrote. So
the opening, the intro, that the wind blowing.
I do the voice, even the voice on the intro where it says, "For if Christ is not risen," I do that voice. Everything. I mean, this is like, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. So I just like, you know what? I'm doing all of it.
I can make slides with my editing software. I can create stuff, but Chris here, we just got just today, as a matter of fact, we just laid down 3 hours and 40 minutes of response video raw footage to a book that we had just read. So we spent close to 4 hours just doing a response to this book, and I don't want to give it away, but I crunched the numbers. It's gonna be a 9-part video. So now all my real work's ahead of me. But yeah, but he used Photoshop to make the slides for it. It's just excerpts from the book, and they look just so much better than mine. I don't use Photoshop, but I probably need to switch over.
I got to use my college degree at some point.
That's right, right?
Yeah.
But,
So all that, yeah, that's interesting. So like a lot of the artsy stuff, you know, it came into play when I made that video series. I mean, being a musician, and having a bunch of sound libraries, orchestral stuff, and I was able to do all the music and sound effects for that series, and I was able to research because I had a lot more spare time, and I was able to write it, you know, write the stuff down and try to get it written the way I want it. And then all the graphics came secondary. So I would try to match a graphic that made sense to what the words were at the time. So that's kind of the order I did it in. I wrote it, researched and wrote it, and then I voiced it from, you know, my monitor and Word document. Then I took that, brought that file in, and then I started laying in graphics on top of that and putting the music in after that. And then it all looks like a video series to other people. But, you know, to me, I'm like, I know exactly how I did it and what order. So it's never as stunning and amazing when you create the thing as somebody else looking at it. Cause I see all the little pieces and I know how I did it, and it's not all that amazing. So that's what I like about when I watch something. It's like, I want to feel that newness. You know, I saw Star Wars in the theater when I was like 14.
77.
There's no substitute for walking off the street. There was no movie trailer I saw. I walked off the street into a theater somewhere in California because my parents were on a trip. Me and a guy and another person sat down. I didn't know what Star Wars was. Suddenly the ship is coming over and I mean, your jaw has to drop because you're 14 years old. So that's the way I like it. It's like, I like to enjoy a thing and sometimes not think about how it was made or what I'm really, just experience the whole instead of all the little pieces. But now as a creator, I start picking things apart and it loses that mystery.
What's this latest series? What was the first one in it? It wasn't Last Jedi. What was the first one? Can you remember?
Force Awakens.
Force Away. Okay, so I'm sitting in the theater with my girls. Is that episode 7?
7.
Okay, so I'm sitting in the theater with the girls, right? They're caught up, so we're watching it. And it was the first time ever that I've experienced this. It was almost transubstantiation. Like, it wasn't even metaphorical. I became 9 years old again. And I'm sitting there just watching it just like I did in 77. It blew me away. But the subsequent videos sucked balls, but that one really just put me right back in 1977. But anyway,
I agree.
Yeah. Now you guys don't know, but TruthSurge, let me try to explain to these two guys the origin of your channel name. All right, and if I get it wrong, you can tell me afterwards. All right. So you received an email from someone. You're probably in the course of your work, and sometimes they have a signature block at the end, and under that, everyone likes to leave a little quirky little quote, and the quote was. It was during the Iraq War or one of the wars. It said, "We don't need a troop surge. We need a truth surge." And you thought it just jumped out at you, and you said, "Hey, is that kind of what happened?"
Yeah, except it wasn't an email. It was a post in some forum.
Okay.
Like, some forum, and it just happened, back and forth. And that was just some little tag in that particular person's, it just shows up at the end of all their posts. And I was like, TruthSurge. I was like, wow, that would be a good name, for my YouTube channel. And so I just snagged it and took the space out between, and that's my name. So there's no great mystery. I just thought it sounded good. Considering that what I'm trying to do is, I hope that I have a good grasp of the truth in terms of that whole religion, Christianity thing. And so you know, that seemed to sound like a good name to me, so I grabbed it, and that's it. I mean, it has nothing to do with my war or anti-war or anything like that. Although, I mean, obviously, I'm against war. I mean, I think anybody would, in general, be against people killing other people just to gain their, you know, land and oil and.
Right. Iraq was false pretenses, but I still went there twice because I signed that pink sheet of paper. But even at the time, I said, hey, guys, I even told my CO, I let him know. I was very open about it. We're in the wrong country. This is not where we belong, but I'm going to go do my job. But yeah, I went twice, and I was totally against the Iraq war. Now, a case could be made for Afghanistan. That might be a different story. That's arguable. But yeah, I went twice, and I don't think we'd even belong there. I think it did way more harm than good. But out of my five big early influences in the atheist YouTube community, I mean, look at the names. I mean, yours is so, it's got better staying power. Like, I'm sure Thunderfoot would love to have gone back and really thought out his name a little better.
Yeah, it is an odd name, isn't it? Like Thunderfoot, and it's not even FOOT.
It's F00T.
So where does that come from? Well, it may be a more interesting interview, but then again, look, what's in the name, right? I mean, it rose by any other name.
Sure. It's not really, no one cares about the name. Dark Matter's pretty cool, but Bionic Dance, I'm sure she has a backstory to that. 43 Alley, that I'm sure there's no backstory to all these, but a lot of them are just kind of, they look back and it's like a bad tattoo. It's on me. I got to make the best of it. I'm already a big YouTuber. I can't change now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
TruthSurge.
Yeah. That's
trademark.
Right?
Copyright, trademark.
Guys, chime in. And Chris, you need to shut the fuck up, man. You're talking way too much.
I only have snarky stuff to say that's only funny to me, so I'm trying to keep things a little more accessible.
If you go back and look at the end of any video that Chris is in on our channel, because I always do outtakes, and he's got the wittiest damn outtakes every time. Yeah, it's funny as hell.
Funny as shit.
Yep. He's one of those introspective, deep thinkers, but when he talks, you want to listen. All right, so okay, we're getting close to the end here. TruthSurge, speaking of YouTube personalities, what do you watch? A lot of other YouTubers, and if so, which ones do you like? Which ones are you following right now?
I kind of, I subscribe to a couple of just small channels, and I guess they haven't been making videos. YouTube changed this thing where like I think you had to hit subscriptions to even see them. And, I guess I'm not subscribed to any big atheist channels. I mean, I'll just very few. And I don't know, I guess it's just comes and goes. It's like I did the religion thing, and now for a long time I haven't really been thinking along those lines. So I haven't been digging around or following anything. That Bod to Bits guy, I was subbed to him.
Oh, that was a good one.
He made some good videos, very deep, English accent. Phil Hellenes.
Yes, and Prof MTH, Professor Math. Prof MTH.
I watched some ones. I wasn't subbed to him, but I watched some of the. I didn't sub to a lot of people, even though I would watch the videos. So I've seen some of those. But I mean, you know more about my videos, I think, than I can remember, because it's like, really? That's been a long time. I had to go back and look at that Josephus stuff because I couldn't remember all the.
Ask the question. You gotta ask.
Oh no, I know that's coming up. That's the next one. Phil Hellenes. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Yeah. Thanks, Beej, in the live chat. Okay. You know what? We don't have time for grab bag questions. It's probably a good thing, but we have 90 pre-written questions that we ask. And you know what? Let's just throw one out there before we ask our final question. Pick a number between 1 and 90, and whatever it is, even if you're not an expert on it, which is a good chance you might not be, but do your best to answer. You ready? Do you feel like playing that game, or you just want to go to the final question?
Who, me?
Yes.
Yeah, you.
That's whatever y'all want to do. I'm game
Here we
for
go.
it.
Here we go.
All right. Pick a number between 1 and 90. This can be anything. It can be socio-political. It might be theological. It might be what's your favorite pizza topping. You have no idea what this is going to be.
Okay. How about 16?
Okay. Here we go. Oh, no. Okay. Here we go.
He was really hoping for the pizza topping.
Well, that would be a damn sight better than this one. Okay. I'm just going to read it all the way through. Do you support NFL players' decision to take a knee during the national anthem?
Yeah, I mean, look, I am kind of anti-patriotism, meaning obviously you should know. I mean, artsy people are usually, why can't we all get along and just have one planet of people helping each other? Why do we have these divisions? Why do we have guys in suits and ties in closed rooms scribbling on paper, and suddenly everybody has to obey that? I mean, so I don't like the idea of patriotism. I don't like, we're the greatest country in the world, and I don't want to live in that world, but I am in that world. But so yeah, I mean, if you have a belief, but maybe there's a time and place for it too. You know, maybe football, just do your job. People want to see. You know what? I go over to my dad's and he likes football. You know, when he was his heyday, he was like 6'2", like almost 300 pounds. So yeah, in high school, you know, he was the bomb, right? Because he was so, you know, fit for it. He was big boned, and he watched football all the time. And I would go over to his house. Now stand for the national anthem. I would just nearly want to puke. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see guys in military uniforms standing up. I don't want to see jets flying over. I just want to watch football. I don't want religion and politics shoved down my throat because they know they have a captive audience. So I'm kind of like, I get it. And I kind of am behind it, because I think if there's a problem, then, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So, I mean, obviously there's a problem. I don't think you should be making kids stand up in a classroom, put their hand on their heart and recite, "I pledge allegiance to the flag" every day. That's just how I feel. I think there's better things they could be doing with that 15 seconds. But
I'm going to open this up to Chris and TJ also. So you all be thinking about your answers.
I mean, that's all I got to say. I'm all for them protesting in a nonviolent way like that, and saying, hey, I'm just not, you know, because for all I know, they may just be like me. They just don't want to have anything to do with this, you know, this whole we're better than them, and you know, that kind of
patriotism isn't real patriotism.
Yeah, it's not just compulsory, it's the blind patriotism. It's the USA did it, I agree with it, that settles it. It's like anything that has a flag pattern on it is automatically good, and just like a knee-jerk reaction. But my kind of feeling about it is that I really haven't heard, out of all the people who have been frothing at the mouth over the last year, I really haven't heard any really good arguments against it other than I don't like it. Like they say they say, oh, you're disrespecting the flag. Well, the flag doesn't give a shit. It's literally an inanimate object. Are you disrespecting what the flag stands for? Well, I'm pretty sure that the flag does not stand for black people getting shot by police all the time. So that's and if you're really genuinely, like, if you're gonna pull a Pence and you can't if you can't enjoy 60 minutes of football because of something that happened for 2 minutes before the game, then it's just a weird set of priorities that I just don't understand personally, I guess.
Like, who cares? Watch the goddamn game.
Right. It's civil. What's it called?
Civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience has to be a little bit uncomfortable to be effective, right? Then it could be argued there's a fine line between just walking across a bridge, on the way to Selma, right, or blocking traffic to an airport when there's emergency vehicles trying to get a kid that maybe needs a blood transfusion. I'm saying there's an argument to be made there, but civil disobedience has to be a little bit uncomfortable to be effective. Yes.
What's the saying? Those who make civil disobedience impossible make revolution probable. Or
I know where you're going with that. That sounds right.
I can't remember the exact saying. Like those who make like.
I know where you're trying to say. Yeah.
Make revolution like necessary or something like that. Like I can't remember the exact saying, but it's like if you can't like civilly disagree with the powers that be, right? Like you're necessarily making open revolution like necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question. I'm gonna let Chris. You haven't talked much. You know the question I'm about to ask. We ask every guest of our show this question, depending on if they're a believer or non-believer. We tailor it accordingly. So, Chris, go ahead and ask TruthSurge the last question.
I don't remember the last question.
Oh, Jim. You don't? Okay, TJ, hit it.
You, Jim. Okay, so TruthSurge. If, say, hypothetically, it came out that God did exist unquestionably, there was no question, every knee bent, and every person understood that he was Lord, Savior, God, whatever. How would that change your life, and would you choose to worship that God?
Oh, wait a minute. I missed him. There's a mosquito. I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer.
You know it better than I do. Jim knows it better than I do.
I'm not filibustering.
No.
Yeah, he is.
No.
Answer the question, sir.
No one expects the Inquisition.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
I will answer it. But you got to understand these mosquitoes, man.
No. You're good.
All right.
I said good day, sir.
All right. So this is
beyond question.
Okay,
God
got it.
Exists.
Got it.
God exists.
Right.
How would it change your life?
Okay. So we're talking about
and would you worship the God?
Okay. So we're talking about during my lifetime, during my lifetime, not after I die and I find out.
No. Right. Like right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was the God described in the Bible.
It's Yahweh of the Old and New Testament.
It's Yahweh of the Old and New Testament.
Right. So with all of that spelled out, no, I would not worship the God. I cannot get behind a being who found it necessary to drown.
How would it change your life, though? How would it change your life? Would you how specifically would you move forward with this knowledge?
Would you rebel against him, even knowing that you there is undeniable eternity of gnashing of teeth waiting for you? Would you take down your videos that are refuting? Of course, every video in your library is now bullshit. Would you? How would it change your life?
Well, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. All the videos wouldn't become null and void. Only the ones that might indicate that there is no God or whatever. I mean, it'd be very weird. It's like saying, now if it turns out to be true, you know. But then how? Then what I would say to that God is, so why did you allow this writing to happen that made it look as if you were as if you were completely fictional? And furthermore, if you are omniscient, then you already know that my intentions were pure in trying to ascertain the truth of the matter. So if you want to burn me at that point, good on you.
So you'd have some questions.
Let me try to steel man him real quick. He would acknowledge his existence. He would accept that. He would refuse to bend his knee and worship him in the way that he wants to be worshipped. And he would have a lot of questions for him. And he, what did you say at the end there? I forgot now. I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would have a lot of questions. Like, I mean, why would you make yourself so so mysteriously absent, but then suddenly magically it turns out that you exist? But what about all this stuff that didn't lead to that? And now I was buying into that, but he's saying, well, even the Bible stuff, yeah, it's the God of the Bible. So then I'm going to say, so yes, you drowned babies, you killed 70,000 Israelites because some other guy wanted to know how many he had in his army. So you killed David's son because he had an affair with Bathsheba. So you killed people for crimes other people committed. That is at its base immoral. Why would I worship an immoral being? That's the kinds of questions I would ask this being. I would, I would acknowledge if it was clearly that being existed, then I would have these questions. Because look, why would you find it necessary, being all powerful and all knowing, to torture ants for all eternity? That doesn't make any sense. So none of it would make sense, and I would need answers. And if he supplied, he, she, it, whatever, supplied sufficient answers where it all added up, then if those things were answered sufficiently, then then I would worship. In other words, if he said, well, it was necessary to drown those babies because but I don't see that forthcoming. I don't see a God's existence forthcoming. So obviously it's hypothetical, but I'm just saying, should that happen, then there's other dominoes that would have to fall before I would get behind that person, because that's a horrible God of an Old Testament that I don't want to have anything to do with.
Me and you have talked about this at some length. So, Chris, what do you think is particularly in reference to this particular hypothetical situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question for me is, I'd have to really seriously think about if I was going to actually worship him or not, because TruthSurge brings up a very valid point. I've heard of other atheists say the same point. If the God of the Bible exists, then the God of the Bible is kind of an asshole, but he's also an extremely powerful asshole that has your eternity at stake. Because if God exists, now all of a sudden heaven and hell is in play now. Right. And so do I suck it up and bend the knee, knowing that if that gets me into heaven for eternity, that rather than, maybe I like to think the honest course would be say, I honestly don't like you and hate your guts, and I may go to hell for that. But at that point, you have to make a value judgment as to, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice eternally for the sake of being true to myself? And it's that's a tough question. I'll be honest. I don't know if I wouldn't, be a little weasel and worship the God I hate just because it gets me into heaven.
TruthSurge, earlier you alluded to the possibility that you might, even knowing now that you know everything in the Bible is true, that you would still hold out hope for getting maybe possibly bonus points for at least being honest in your disbelief, and maybe your genuineness would get you some bonus points, and maybe that would get you a free pass. No? Is that a straw man?
Well, yeah, I mean, you would hope that if this being ultimately loves everybody, and wants to see them in heaven, you would think he would know the intentions of people and know that I spent a ton of time, just in particular me, a ton of time as a Christian reading this stuff, and a ton of time later figuring out, well, you know what? The best explanation so far is that it's all man-made. It was never from any God. I mean, really? The God that created the universe only knows what Iron Age people knew. Seriously? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I would be like, yes, I've given this an honest examination. I've been on both sides, and I've truly tried to dig into what I could find and get behind as true. So if that being has good intentions and he appreciates that, then but then it doesn't add up, because now are we saying the whole Bible's true? Well, there's one way to heaven, and that's accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior. So like there's so many pieces. It's almost an unanswerable question, because I'm like, well, what about the Jesus part of it? Was that fictional or was that true? So it never ends. I mean,
saved rounds. I'll start with Chris. You have anything for the end? Anything you saved?
Nope. I've said my piece, as literal as it is.
All right.
I do want to say thank you to TruthSurge for joining us tonight. It was good to have you here.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, TJ.
Yeah, thanks, TruthSurge. As a voracious Rush fan, thank you for doing Closer to the Heart.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Appreciate it.
Hang on.
Is he gonna lay out a few bars for us?
Is he gonna do it?
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
That's
here.
great.
Just
if you did a couple bars of Faithfully from Journey, I would just
wait a minute. Let's see if I can do this.
Oh my God. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now I can't do the next part because I pitch shift my voice.
To hold high places, be the ones to
Start something.
Reality, close to the heart. Hell yeah, close to the heart. Hell yeah.
Well, at least we hit on it, man. We hit on it.
Hell yeah,
That's,
man. I fucking love that shit.
A little Chuck Berry,
I'm not a huge fan of Rush, but they don't they all have doctorates in they all have PhDs in music. They are very technically accurate. I give them that.
Like you're talking about the best bass player living on the planet right
best
now.
Drum player.
Best drummer who's living on the planet right now. And one of the best guitarists living on the planet right now.
TJ, you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, TruthSurge, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Thank you guys for chatting with me and having me. And I mean, I never feel like I say anything worthwhile in these things. I feel like it's all high level, like I'm unprepared. So all I can say is watch a few of my, Excavating the Empty Tomb. That's got some good stuff in it. Jesus, Hebrew, Human, Myth, and Messiah. That's got some good stuff. I did one called Not the Wisdom of Solomon. That's a good two-part video thing where I show that some of the proverbs were copied from an earlier Egyptian source. So I got some decent little stuff that I think is off the beaten path. It's not just, hey, Mark contradicts Matthew. I kind of avoided that whole thing because I thought that'd been beaten to death. So that's kind of the reason I was doing some of these other types of videos, the Homer thing and all that. So I mean, my videos really say what I want to say. So, I mean, if you can watch some of those, great. There's a few funny ones in there, but it's just whatever mood hits me. I mean, I'm sure I'll do something in the future, but who knows what.
As someone who's been quote unquote, no pun intended, religiously following you for over a decade now. This has true. I've had Arn Raw sitting right next to me in the studio. That was a big deal. I've talked to Bionic Dance, another big influence. This is probably so far the high point of my show. Personally, me personally, just having you on the show, it's just been just a great honor. So thank you so much. And despite all the we tried to do this maybe a month ago, and we had some catastrophic technical difficulties. We almost went through it again, but I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this, and we'd like to have you back on the show in the future as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm flattered and honored and all that stuff. You know, I just it's just what I did. I mean, I didn't set out to do anything other than share what I had discovered, some things that I thought were just downright amazing, and not just this fringe kind of conspiracy. The Bible's completely built on astrology. You know, I'm like, well, we could talk about that. I just don't think that's true. And all these people, well, Horus, you know, Jesus is just a carbon copy of Horus, and the whole zeitgeist thing. So I try to keep my stuff really not so far out there, but you know, have some support and evidence for it. So I've just had fun with it and sharing stuff and made some friends along the way. So that's it.
Sorry, I got one more saved round. We just what, 4 days ago, our channel just hit 3,000 subscribers. I know it's not your 30,000 or whatever you've got, but it's kind of a milestone. So thanks to everyone for making that happen. And TruthSurge, do you have any, besides your channel, is there any plugs or upcoming events or any side projects, anything you like to plug?
No, I'm kind of, I feel like I'm in a holding pattern. I'm just day to day, take care. I go to my dad's twice a day and do the voice thing. I audition for voice jobs and do that off and on. And just no, I'm not in the atheist community. I don't go to those what do you call them? Conventions and
conferences.
Yeah, I am not rubbing elbows ever with those people because I'm a home person. I stay home. I don't get out. I don't want to get out. I'm just in my man cave, and that's just it. So I don't have any greatness to share, but just get out there and snoop around. And I mean, just like you, okay, just like you found my videos, well, other people are going to come up, you know, and they're going to do some great videos, but maybe we don't know who they are yet. But
right. Okay. That's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.